Joe Bandel's Oak Tarot completely rewrites the Two of Wands, discarding centuries of occult mysticism and the traditional image of a conqueror holding a globe to instead depict the terrifying, nervous vulnerability of a man and a woman simply standing close to each other. We're looking at how a deck of 78 cards, historically used for divination and esoteric study, can be re-engineered into a brutally honest map of human intimacy. The focus shifts entirely from predicting the future or expanding one's worldly domain, which is the classic interpretation of this card, to the immediate, visceral experience of early romantic attraction. The Two of Wands in Bandel's system captures that specific moment where attraction is felt, but trust remains uncertain. Breathing quickens, eyes dart away and back. It forces the reader to confront the physical and psychological reality of nervous vulnerability.
The contrast with the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck is stark and intentional. In the Rider-Waite version, designed in the early 20th century by Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Colman Smith, the Two of Wands shows a wealthy merchant standing on a castle balcony holding a small globe. He is looking out over his domain, representing ambition, long-term planning, and the intersection of personal power and future potential. Bandel strips all of that imperial, solitary ambition away. In the Oak Tarot of Love and Romance, he reinterprets the suit of wands as representing spiritual love. The Two of Wands becomes a relational dynamic. He places two glowing wands upright between a young man and woman. A strong oak tree anchors the background. The colors are soft golds, warm pinks, and gentle greens. The grandiose expansion of territory is replaced by the quiet, intense expansion of trusting another human being.
Stripping away the astrological and Kabbalistic associations that Waite and Smith built into their deck seems like a massive reduction in symbolic meaning. Framing the entire tarot strictly around romantic and platonic relationships risks flattening a complex spiritual tool into a mundane dating guide. The traditional Two of Wands applies to career, creative projects, and personal sovereignty. By forcing the archetype into the narrow box of a shy, romantic encounter, Bandel might be alienating readers who rely on the tarot for broader existential guidance.
That critique makes sense if you view human relationships as separate from spiritual or cosmic development. Bandel's underlying philosophy, which he details in his broader writings on what he calls the Oak Matrix, argues that human intimacy is the primary mechanism for integrating chaos and order. He views the integration of opposing forces, masculine and feminine, self and other, as the basic rhythm of the universe. To Bandel, mapping human intimacy is not a reduction of the tarot's scope, it is a distillation of it. It's also fascinating to look at Bandel's intellectual background. He spent years translating early 20th century German weird fiction and dark fantasy, including authors like Karl Hans Straubel and Hans-Heinz Ewers, as well as Der Orchidengarten, the world's first illustrated fantasy magazine published in 1919. A translator steeped in Gothic horror and the subconscious dark fantasy of pre-World War I Germany, pivoting to a tarot deck centered on emotional vulnerability seems counterintuitive. But that background in the shadow self informs why his version of romance is not sanitized. The shy excitement in his Two of Wands is laced with genuine psychological tension and the fear of the unknown.
That tension is explicitly written into the card's visual cues. The figures are close, but not touching. Their eyes flick away and back, and they exhibit nervous smiles. This perfectly captures the physiological reality of early attraction. Clinical psychology supports the idea that this anxiety is not just a byproduct of romance, but an active, adaptive component of it. A 2020 study by Susan M. Hughes and colleagues, published in the journal Adaptive Human Behavior and Physiology, investigated nervous behaviors displayed during initial interpersonal attraction. The researchers found that involuntary physiological responses, like a faster heart rate, blushing, an unsteady tone of voice, and nervous smiling actually serve a distinct evolutionary purpose. These inadvertent expressions of vulnerability signal to a potential partner that the person is authentic, engaging, and potentially a good candidate for a long-term relationship. The nervousness itself is a biological green flag.
The physiological betrayal of our own composure is exactly what Bandel captures in the artwork. We spend significant social energy trying to project confidence and armor ourselves against rejection. Brené Brown's extensive research on vulnerability highlights how people utilize perfectionism and emotional stoicism as shields to prevent being truly seen, because being seen carries the existential risk of being found unworthy. When two people stand close, as depicted in this card, the glowing wands represent the energetic exchange that occurs when those shields begin to slip. The card explicitly asks the reader to stay open even when feeling scared. The hesitation is natural because, as attachment science demonstrates, emotional exposure requires proof that the other person is safe. The shy attraction mixed with nervous vulnerability is the nervous system attempting to assess threat in real time.
The concept of the nervous system assessing threat brings up a crucial nuance about early attraction. In trauma literature, the intense, instantaneous spark that many mistake for a profound connection is often a dysregulated nervous system recognizing a familiar, often chaotic, early life relational pattern. The Oak Tarot's depiction of a tentative, shy exchange rather than a rapid, fiery collision suggests a healthier pacing. Clinical frameworks, such as those developed by sensory motor psychotherapy founder Pat Ogden, emphasize that pacing allows the nervous system time to integrate new information and establish a genuine window of tolerance. By illustrating the figures as close but not touching, the Two of Wands models the intentional regulation of relational development. They are observing the spiritual energy flowing between them without rushing to consume it or escalate the physical intimacy prematurely.
That visual boundary is critical. The two wands standing upright between them act as both a conduit and a temporary barrier. They allow the energy to pass back and forth while maintaining the sovereignty of both individuals. This brings us to how Bandel delineates the specific experiences of the figures. He assigns distinct descriptions based on gender polarity. The male experience is described as feeling the first gentle pull of attraction and wondering if he can trust it. The female experience is characterized by feeling the energy moving toward her and feeling both excited and shy. Bandel describes this as a dynamic where one person gives energy while the other receives. In esoteric traditions, this mirrors the active and receptive principles often associated with masculine and feminine polarities.
Categorizing the energetic exchange along strict male and female lines can feel archaic, especially in contemporary contexts, where we understand relational dynamics to be far more fluid. Assigning the giving or pulling action to the male and the receiving to the female risks reinforcing passive tropes for women in romance. However, if we interpret these descriptions as energetic polarities rather than biological mandates, the dynamic becomes a universal human experience. In any nascent romantic connection, regardless of the genders involved, there is an initiator and a responder. The roles fluctuate, but in the micro moment of a first encounter, someone must extend the energetic invitation and someone must decide whether to accept it. The vulnerability lies in both positions. The initiator risks rejection, while the receiver risks allowing their boundaries to be permeated by a stranger.
When you view it as an energetic polarity, the oak tree in the background of the card takes on a grounding significance. Oak trees are ancient symbols of endurance, deep roots, and stability. In the context of this fleeting, nervous moment of first attraction, the oak represents the potential for what this fragile exchange could become. It offers a promise of structural integrity. Bandel is suggesting that the chaos of new love, the rapid heartbeat, the uncertainty, the fear of exposure, must eventually be rooted in something enduring. The spiritual love, represented by the suit of wands in this deck, cannot survive solely on the nervous electricity of the two of wands. It requires the deep roots of the oak to transition from a tentative encounter into a sustainable partnership.
It forces the question of how we define spiritual love in the modern era. The Oak Tarot posits that spiritual love is not found in ascetic isolation or abstract religious devotion, but in the messy, terrifying act of letting another person perceive you accurately. The card instructs the user to stay open. That is a deceptively simple directive. Staying open when the nervous system is screaming at you to deploy your usual defense mechanisms, whether that is humor, intellectualization, or physical withdrawal, requires a massive exertion of willpower. The true esoteric work is not memorizing Kabbalistic paths. It is maintaining eye contact when you feel entirely exposed.
Bandel explicitly states that his words are written to be simple, honest, and relatable, advising users to trust nothing on faith and keep only what rings true for them. He dismantles the guru dynamic often present in the occult community. By removing the arcane symbolism and presenting a young man and woman navigating their own anxiety, he democratizes the tarot. He is handing the authority back to the individual. The user is forced to reflect on their own patterns of avoidance and attraction. If you pull the Two of Wands, you are not being told that your business venture will succeed or that a dark-haired stranger is coming with a financial proposition. You are being asked to identify where you are blocking the natural flow of spiritual energy in your life because you are afraid of the vulnerability required to engage with it.
That localized interpretation challenges the user to take responsibility for their emotional architecture. If we return to the physiological aspect, the Hughes research demonstrates that others can clearly perceive our anxiety during attraction. We are terrible at hiding our interest. Our vocal pitch changes, our pupils dilate, our concentration breaks. The Two of Wands captures the precise moment we realize our armor has failed, and the other person can see us reacting to them. It is the threshold between isolation and intimacy. By replacing the traditional merchant overlooking his empire with two people confronting their shared humanity, Joe Bandel argues that the most profound domain we can ever hope to explore is the internal world of another person.
The mastery implied by the traditional Two of Wands is reimagined as the mastery of one's own fear. Navigating the space between two glowing wands, managing the current of that spiritual energy without retreating into cynicism or defensive posturing, is the ultimate test of personal power. The card does not promise a seamless transition into a perfect relationship. It simply honors the bravery required to stand in that space of not knowing, letting the nervous system acclimate to the presence of another, and choosing to remain present.
The Oak Tarot of Love and Romance transforms a static deck of cards into a mirror for our most complex relational anxieties, asking us to recognize that the initial, terrifying jolt of vulnerability is actually the foundation of deep connection. Share this episode with a friend who appreciates a critical look at the psychology behind our romantic archetypes.